Hey folks, today's episode's once again brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook and a 30-day free trial by going to www.audibletrial.com/epicfails. Epic with a K. Just wanted to check in real quick and assure everyone that this is a corona-free episode. I'm pretty sure at this point everyone's already aware of just how serious this pandemic is by now. I mean, come on, they postponed the Olympics. That hasn't happened since World War II. However, if you do want to hear more about my thoughts on the pandemic, check out our last episode, which was all about that, where I spoke with Dr. Robert Bednars in Scotland about some of the historical parallels to what's going on now.
Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds.
The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. The terribleness of the wonder of the worst catastrophes in the world still recalls humanity. We've had a problem here.
Well, when the president does it, that means that it is not illegal.
Epic fails of history.
Socrates, the only true wisdom consists in knowing that you know nothing. That's us, dude. Oh, yeah.
Hey everybody, welcome back. Eric Slater here from Epic Fails of History, and I'm here with my co-host once again, Chris Carroll.
Hey.
And today we're answering a question from a listener of the show.
Yeah, this one comes from a friend and listener, Nichole Wilkes. Shout out to Nichole for the idea. It's a really good one. Today we're going to talk about, I'm not so sure how well it's a failure, but it's a really cool idea. If you could go to any moment in history, through, whatever means of time travel you want to use, DeLorean, phone booth, doesn't matter. Just regarding time travel rules, just go witness an event or a series of events. What would it be and why?
These are the circuits of history, gentlemen. They'll take us to any point in time we wish.
So this is actually something I think about probably way too often. I mean, I'm a huge fan of anything time travel. Like my favorite books, movies, all that stuff tends to deal with this subject. So I've really, really thought about this a lot. So it's kind of hard to narrow it down. I guess if I was to witness an event from history, there's a couple candidates. I've kind of narrowed it down to the Gettysburg Address, just witnessing Lincoln speak. I honestly don't know what that would be. You kind of have this image in your head, and because it's such a big moment in history, it's sort of, we have this illusion of gravitas, but maybe he was kind of stumbling through his speech. He might have been dropping his notes. There might have been a heckler being like, "You suck, Lincoln." Like, we don't know. Like, that would have been interesting to see the actual, because, one thing that's become very apparent to me the more I research history is that people from back then weren't all that different from people today. It's not like people were fancier back then. And if anything, we're more polite today than we are now. Yeah. So Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, I got to say, another one would be the Council of Nicaea. This is back in 325 CE, and a lot of people don't know about it, honestly, which is crazy to me because
it's one of the most important moments in the history of humanity.
Yeah.
It's really, the influence that moment had is, I'm hard pressed to come up with anything that had more of a worldwide lasting impact. Exactly. Other than the meteor that killed the dinosaurs.
Exactly. And what's crazy about this event is we don't know a whole lot about what went down at the Council of Nicaea. We know the effect of it. It's basically Emperor Constantine reforming the state religion, basically, with Christianity. It was starting to become a popular thing, and they kind of wanted to... That's a whole thing.
Do you know why he converted the country?
There's a couple...
His mom adopted it first.
That's what I heard.
She browbeat him into doing it, which goes to show, it doesn't matter how old you are, how powerful you are. If your mom tells you to do something enough times, you end up caving.
That's awesome. So yeah, it's not to get it too into the details, but they basically kind of figured out what the New Testament of the Bible is. So they took all these Gospels and figured out which ones counted. Yeah. And I feel like I don't know. I have weird feelings about that.
That's not okay. I mean, if you subscribe to the notion that those are religious texts, that they are the word of God or the word of holy men who spoke for God,
right,
then to edit them is the most egotistical display of hubris you could you're putting yourself above God. Yeah. Now, me personally, I'm not trying to get on a soapbox or anything. Sure. I'm not a religious person. I don't subscribe to any of that stuff. I'm not saying that anybody who does is wrong or that it's bad or anything like that. We just come at it from a different point of view. All right.
Fair enough.
Preface by saying that. But for someone to go like, we should cherry pick the ones that we feel like either we can enforce or that they kind of reinforce our specific morals or whatever in the here and now.
Yeah.
Like, who are you to decide what is keepable and what isn't?
Yeah.
Just because you're some emperor? Like, I don't know. I think that's crap.
Well, and that goes back to an issue today, you know, with people, you know, taking certain verses and stuff out of context. But I don't mean to go off on that tangent too much. But yeah, you know, I'm sure the Vatican has a vault somewhere with the records of what really went down there. But yeah, just be an interest either way. It'd be an interesting moment to witness because history itself was changed from then on.
I mean, that's an understatement. I mean, you think about how the world is and has been for the last, 1600, 1700 years or whatever, 1700 years at this point.
Yeah.
Like it's CE, it's AD, right?
Yeah. So, a lot of historians use CE, which is Common Era, and BCE, which is before Common Era. But, a lot of people still use BC and AD, which is before Christ and Anno Domino, which is the year of our Lord, not after death, because that wouldn't make sense because Jesus would be dead during his life.
I think I knew it wasn't after death after I was like 6 years old.
Yeah. Sorry.
No,
I forgot to
think
mention
about the world as it has been for like the last 1700 years, and almost every major event that has occurred, in some way, shape, or form is tied to religion.
Yeah.
And Christianity's been at the forefront of a lot of that. You know, the Spanish Inquisition, you got the Crusades, the formation of the United States of America.
Exactly. Like, all that.
I mean,
all of the above.
How much oppression and genocide and all this stuff has occurred in the name of religion. I mean, don't get me wrong. If it wasn't religion, there'd be something else. We'd be killing each other.
Sure.
We'd create something.
Oh, of course. It's really just an excuse.
Yeah. But it's all of it not necessarily was caused by, but was dramatically shaped by the events of the Council of Nicaea.
Definitely. Oh, what was your...
Yeah, so for me, like in a similar fashion, kind of piggybacking on that a little bit, my first choice was to go to the time of Christ and like try to witness his time. I would probably, I mean, I don't know the rules of this game. If we're like in like an omniscient bubble or something, like we're not hanging out with them, like just kind of watching, you know, like the Watcher or something. They don't necessarily know where.
Right.
I would pick his age at like 13, where like there is no.
Right.
He just goes from he goes from like a little kid to like a 30-something-year-old man.
Well, and again, that's probably the Gnostic Gospels that were cut out.
Yeah, but there's apparently like, I know a lot of like theologists have said that there are some books that exist or existed. I don't know. That, and I'm certainly not an expert on this, so if I'm wrong, I apologize for anybody who's like, this guy's talking out of his. You're 100% right. But I'm just, it apparently depicted him as like being a mortal man, and then like it wasn't until later when he accepted his quote unquote divinity that he started performing miracles. But he did what a rational human being would do when a voice from the sky and angels and your mom and all this shit tells you like you're the son of God or you are God, whatever, right? Like he would react like, what? I'm just gonna build stuff with this hammer. I'm good. I don't want to do all the stuff you want me to do and have that stuff happen to me. That sounds really bad. Did I build that cross? Ooh, that sucks. But to be able to go back and just see, but I would just want to know, if anything, just for myself, I would, try to spread the word, but for just myself to know, like, what really happened? Was he, a holy being? Was he capable of performing these miracles he was supposed to have performed and then some? Yeah. Or was all this was all this made up? We don't know. Yeah. Because there's no evidence other than some texts that were written way after the fact.
Yeah. The first written record about him is like 100 years after he died.
Right. Yeah. So if I decided to write a book about my great great grandfather,
that's not a primary source.
Right. And like only went by like the name that I had and like what had been told to me by like my dad that he learned from his dad, that he learned from his dad.
Yeah.
You would look at me like I was an asshole. You'd be like, there's no works cited here. There's no bibliography. You can't quote one source.
You just copy and paste it from Wikipedia.
Yeah. But instead, like the whole world's like, we will kill each other for these Wikipedia entries. And
that's well said.
Again, I'm not trying to say I'm smarter than anybody. For all I know, every word in that is true. But I would have to know. If I only got to choose one, it would be that. Now, if I got to choose one from like, that would be awesome. It would be, I'd go see dinosaurs. Duh.
Oh my God. Why didn't I think of dinosaurs?
Absolutely duh.
Yeah. I'd bring one back.
Be awesome.
I want
I'd open
to.
up a portal. If it's time portals, I'd open up a portal and just leave it open.
Yeah.
Like, come on, dinosaurs. Go get North Korea.
Yeah, exactly. Weaponized dinosaurs, just like the Jurassic World
Hey,
movies.
Putin, here's a T-Rex. You better be careful because he might come after you now.
Oh yeah.
Some people don't know, but Erik has a history with the Russians.
Yeah, my site got taken down a couple times.
After he criticized the Russian government.
It was an article about Stalin. I didn't think you could say anything nice about Stalin.
Current Russian government. Like, you better not say anything bad about past Russia.
So yeah, that's a whole nother story for another podcast.
Yeah, crazy. So I would definitely go see dinosaurs. Another one would be like, did the city of Atlantis ever exist?
Oh, that's a good one.
That'd be cool, right? But for like American history, for me personally,
Yeah.
I would want to go to Mission Control in 1969 for the entire Apollo 11 mission where we placed men on the moon for the first time.
That's an amazing answer.
And not because I got to see if it really happened. You, it happened.
See, there is actually evidence for that.
Yeah, called the people who lived it and video evidence. And like, I mean, come
There's
on.
so much. There's a paper trail.
Yes.
Like that alone.
Yes. There's millions of dollars. You can track where it went. Anyway.
We went into this in a previous
it makes
episode.
me really mad when people say the moon landing's a hoax. You're for thinking it.
Agreed.
But no, to think about like either Apollo 11, that would be my first choice. Also Apollo 13.
Oh, that'd be stressful.
To see the highs and lows in that mission control room.
Yeah.
To know that like a small mistake one of them, someone that was not in that room had made, caused the guys that they were responsible for to be put in a position where they were almost certainly going to die.
Yeah.
And to be able to pull that out of their like that. And return all those guys home safely in a ship that was not meant to do that. With one guy who was on the deathbed from an illness.
Yeah.
With no oxygen. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
To be
pretty
able to
incredible
see those
event.
people work.
Yeah.
In those circumstances, under that kind of pressure.
Yeah.
I can't imagine anything more impressive. I mean, I would just to see that.
Chris and I would be geeking out there being like, oh, Gene Kranz is about to say the thing.
He's about to say the thing. Look, he's got the vest on.
Yeah, exactly.
That would change my whole life. That would be amazing.
Yeah,
and then of course there'd be the ones where you'd have to see it to solve a conspiracy theory, like your other one.
Like Roswell, the JFK assassination.
Roswell would be a big one for me, and I'll talk about that. But you had a really cool idea about the JFK assassination.
So there's obviously a lot of tinfoil hat theories about what happened during the JFK assassination. Like who was on the grassy knoll, like, you know, like
Who shot who? Was it a magic bullet?
Yeah, there's like a lot of like things we don't know, and it seems like the government did cover up something. We just don't know what it was. My theory, and I don't think it's that crazy, but
it's the most plausible theory I've ever heard.
And honestly, I think there's a book written about this.
Probably about it. I mean, you can't cover a single idea about what happened without there being a book about it. I mean,
yeah. I think it might have just been after the shot rang out, one of the Secret Service guys stumbled and accidentally shot the president. I think that it was a screw up that they then had to cover up. Because that would look really bad, especially at that time.
Yeah. We had the government in turmoil, and Kennedy was like the only real leader we had. And like, they couldn't just say like, oops.
Yeah. So
like, as unbelievably horrible as that is.
Yeah. And I hope that it's declassified eventually, because it was almost declassified recently.
Honestly, I hope for that agent's sake, it's not true.
Yeah.
Because I mean, can you imagine?
That would be horrible.
To fail at your job like that on an accident would be for those guys. And I've actually, my brother used to be really good friends with the kid whose dad was in George Sr.'s Secret Service detail.
Oh, man.
And they stay with those guys after they retire.
Yeah,
so
they do.
Would be gone like weeks at a time hanging out with George H.W.
Wow.
He knows all the Bush family. He knows
That's
all the
incredible.
Quails. He knows all those guys. He has them on a Christmas card list and stuff.
Yeah.
This dude knows everybody.
Yeah. And with how loyal those guys are, you know?
You know, for them, it's almost like a sacred duty kind of thing. Like protecting those guys is like what their life becomes about. And so if one of those guys accidentally shot the president, I mean, that would ruin his life. Yeah. And of course it would ruin your life accidentally shooting anybody. Right. But if you accidentally shoot the guy you're tasked and like sworn to protect in front of his wife, in front of the entire nation, at a time when like he was needed most. I mean,
and one of the most beloved presidents,
I can't imagine what that would do to that guy. So while I really hope that's not the case, if it is the case, I hope it's declassified to the point where they never release his name. I don't want to know his name. Yeah. Nobody needs to know his name. Yeah. All that's going to do is bring shame on him and his family. Yeah. And it's not, there's no way the Secret Service shot him on purpose.
No, of course not. Of course not.
Now, I wouldn't put it past other government agents shooting him. Sure. But you're not getting somebody on the inside on the Secret Service. You're just not doing it.
Those guys are loyal to a T.
Even the dudes they hate, they're loyal to a T.
Yeah, yeah.
I guarantee you there's some dudes that hated Nixon's And they
But still take a bullet for him.
take a bullet for him because it's not about the dude's politics.
It's not about that. It's about the
them.
country.
It's about the Secret Service as a unit, and it's about those guys that are on the Secret Service with them, and it's about their duty to the country.
Yeah.
And those dudes are, for the most part, soldiers first.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're all about duty to the country.
Oh,
Those are the best of the best of the best to go to the Secret Service.
If you have anything on your record, you can't even be considered, if I'm not mistaken.
No, you have to
be clean.
You can't, I don't even, it strikes me as like, you had a speeding ticket when you were 16, denied. You know, but for the Kennedy thing, just because there's so many crazy theories about what happened, and we really don't know if any of them are any more plausible. Well, plausible is one thing, but any more accurate than the other ones. Yeah. Everything about that is like, to me, it's the worst day in America. Yeah. That and, 9/11, of course. Let me take that back a step. I'm sorry. It's the worst day in America pre 9/11.
Yeah.
Martin Luther King is another one. Like, that's bad, but we know what happened there. And the Challenger's up there, but like Kennedy would be incredibly interesting to go see that, not to see that awful event.
It was like what happened with Pearl Harbor too. Yeah. Like there was a lot of heroes there that didn't make it out at the end of the day.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's another, I wouldn't want to witness Pearl Harbor.
Well, honestly, a lot
chaos of that.
Yeah.
I know I've actually read a lot about that day.
It's a pretty incredible,
and it all happened so fast. Yeah. And it was completely, I mean, you think about like a sneak attack doesn't happen on American shore. It's happened exactly one time.
Yeah, exactly. Unless you count the British.
We'll say two sneak attacks. Other than there's been terrorist bombings and stuff like that. One military to another. There's been one sneak attack on America, on our soil, and our guys fought it off.
Yeah.
I mean, they took insane losses. Insane losses.
Could have been a lot worse. But
it could have been a hell of a lot worse because we won.
Yeah, exactly.
That's probably
a good point.
How it was supposed to go.
Yeah,
you know?
That's a good point.
There were people that were on guns that they had no training on, no business running. There were some people that weren't even like conscripted to use
like
guns.
the one guy, the chef on the one ship Arizona, I want to say. I can't remember.
Arizona. Yeah. But that's another thing with the time travel thing. Go witness some of these great events like the Battle of Gettysburg.
Right.
Or
that
like
would probably
Antietam, or
well, the thing is with a lot of that stuff, it would be pretty horrifying.
Really horrifying.
Up close, because like battles back then, battles today,
up close and personal.
Yeah.
Face to face.
Yeah. Like they didn't fire they saw the whites of their eyes.
Well,
like
because the bullets couldn't go that far.
Exactly. But like they had bayonets strapped to their guns. Like,
medicine wasn't exactly an exact science. It was like, we're going to get you drunk. Now bite down on this stick and we're just going to saw off about 7 or 8 inches above the bloodline there on your legs, because we can't be sure where the infection stops. So
exactly. Yeah. And then if you talk about like naval warfare in like the 1700s, like there's cannonballs just, taking people's heads off.
Yeah.
Like
I tell you what,
horrifying
another thing
stuff.
I'd like to see, just because the movie fascinated me so much, but like William Wallace, and more importantly,
Braveheart, right?
Yeah. Forgive me, I'm forgetting his name.
Edward Longshanks.
No, the Earl of Bruce. Robert the Bruce, the guy who, according to Braveheart, took up the battle after William Wallace, after he left William Wallace to die. That's not what happened at all. No. Robert the Bruce is the real inspiration for the William Wallace and Braveheart. He was the real driving force of the Scottish Revolution.
I didn't know
William Wallace was a very important figurehead, but it was like the same way that there was like figureheads of the Revolutionary War, but like the real face of it was George Washington. Robert the Bruce is the face of the Scottish Revolution. There's all kinds of stuff like that I'd like to go back and see. But you mentioned one that I was really interested in, and it's Roswell, New Mexico in the 50s. Yeah. Simply because I think that's one of those that I for me, it's not about like, I want to go see aliens, or like, I want to go see Jesus perform miracles, or I want to go see him not perform miracles.
You want to see what happened, what actually happened.
The truth.
Yes.
Whatever the truth is, that's what I want.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think Roswell is so fascinating because it's like, it could be one of the craziest things that'll ever happen in the history of civilization.
Or it was literally a weather balloon.
Or it was nothing.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Yeah, like you said, it was either a weather balloon, like it was some nonsense.
Yeah.
Or it was
a Russian hoax.
Yeah. I mean, again, nonsense. It could have been nothing. The Russian hoax, whatever. Yeah. Some blip on a radar. Right. Who knows? Yeah. Or it was some kind of unidentified flying object that who knows if it was alien life or whatever. Right. There'd be, most people would tell you that it was, that associate Roswell with aliens.
Sure.
But
that's the myth.
They based it off that phony autopsy video. And I don't know, man. I've always been so fascinated. I just want to know what happened.
Well, it's like the whole mystique surrounding Area 51, like what's that all about,
Yeah.
It was probably just a bunch of top secret aircraft,
more than
nuclear
likely,
weapons that they were
cutting
testing.
edge aircraft in a place where they experimented on new fighter jets and spy planes and drones and shit like that.
Yeah.
Where it's top secret because it's like, we don't want you knowing what technology we have until we're using it on you.
So
we don't want you to know about the SR-71 Blackbird until it's hundreds of miles above you in orbit, recording everything. The stealth bomber, you don't know we have it because then you know to look for it.
Yeah. Well, it's like the X-23 military space shuttle that they had.
That's awesome.
Yeah. The fact that that's been up there for decades and we didn't know about it.
Yeah. We had no idea. The government knew about it because they put it up there.
But that's what's funny about government conspiracies is that most of the time they're just covering up a screw up.
Or something exactly what you would think it would be.
Yeah.
It's just a jet.
Yeah.
It's just a crazy new jet.
Occam's razor.
And we don't want you to see it. Yeah.
Well,
it's exactly Occam's razor. Whatever the most likely solution is, that's most likely the solution. Think horses, not zebras.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? If you hear hoofbeats, it's probably a horse, not a zebra.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times we want it so badly to be a zebra that we ignore the fact that it's almost certainly a horse.
Exactly. Hear ye, hear ye. Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day free trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. So I couldn't narrow down just one time travel book to promote, so I decided to list off a few of my favorites. Michael Crichton's Timeline, Stephen King's 11/22/63, Joe Haldeman's The Accidental Time Machine, Max Gladstone's This Is How You Lose the Time War, Audrey Niffenegger's The Time Traveler's Wife. And of course, the classic that started it all, H.G. Wells's The Time Machine. Speaking of time machines, I could really use one to go back in time and warn myself not to get a useless college degree. Now, where did I put that flux capacitor? Anywho, to download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/epicfails with a K. Again, that's audibletrial.com/EPIK fails for your free audiobook. Huzzah! So I want to shift gears real quick. If you could affect a change in history, what would you do?
That's a good question. Do you have one in mind?
I do actually. So I was thinking about this. So obviously there's a lot of questions that come up when it comes to changing history because you got the whole butterfly effect thing. Maybe things will be worse. You just don't know. But
you say affect change. Can I interrupt for just a second? You say if you could affect change, does that mean you can go back and try to warn people, or does it mean you can actually go back and like Infinity Gauntlet a change or wave a magic wand, make a change?
I would assume there'd be some work involved. Like you'd have to strategically.
Okay, because I'm not smart enough to stop 9/11.
No, I'm talking about like one specific thing that you could actually affect.
All right, I would, even if it meant them thinking I'm making a threat.
Oh, okay.
I would get them to switch to a fucking hardtop in Dallas, Texas, in Eagles Plaza, and try to prevent the assassination of John F. Kennedy.
Yeah, because
I think that's the moment that we as a country completely lost our way. I think we changed for the worse. Now, I say that, but at the time we were also a country that discriminated tremendously against homosexuals, African Americans, people that weren't white, women. So in a lot of ways, we're a much, much better place than we were.
Sure.
But I do think that like we lost our innocence in some ways at that moment.
Things were not
as far as like national pride, national zeitgeist.
Yeah.
Because like, I mean, socially you look at it and like we've never been innocent in any way, shape or form.
Oh, of course not.
And at that time in particular, it was like such a turbulent time.
Right.
But from a country point of view, one of the reasons I loved Obama so much is because I felt like he was the first person we'd had in a very long time.
Yeah.
That was a real leader.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like he got the support from his government and his country. And I understand partisan politics. I'm not naive.
Sure.
But it's really unfortunate that people push so hard against him. And I think a lot of people, regardless of what they'll say, pushed against him because of the color of his skin. Sure. Regardless of what they say, I really think a large portion of this country is still tremendously racist and will never admit, or some proudly admit, but will never admit that they'll go out of their way to stand in his way just because he was black or is black, excuse me. Thankfully still alive. And he is, I will say this, he's still a leader and he always will be.
Yeah.
But one of the reasons I really liked him in that role is because I felt like he really did his best to be that Kennedy role that we haven't had since JFK. You look at the presidents.
He was inspirational.
Yeah, in a way that no one's been in 50 years or 40 years in his point.
Right.
But, and who knows? Maybe Kennedy dying is the best thing that happened to him. Maybe he drops, maybe a lot of the stuff that he was doing doesn't work out so great and he takes the blame for it rather than it being put on Eisenhower or whoever.
Yeah.
Maybe things don't work out so well and maybe surviving leaves his legacy in tatters. But I really do think saving John and Bobby Kennedy would have made this country and the world a better place. And
I agree.
To me would be my first instinct if I could go make change. Because again, it might just be as simple as warning that, hey, don't go into the kitchen at the Marriott.
Right.
And, someone don't put him in a convertible, please. And whether they listen to me or not, that would be, I'd try to affect those changes or like warn Martin Luther King not to go to that hotel.
Right. Yeah.
Stop the assassination wave in the 60s that killed all our leaders and let these pieces of shit that have been in charge ever since take over.
Yeah, I agree.
It's not a coincidence that like Rumsfeld and those guys were in the wings back then and have been in positions of power pretty much nonstop. And I used him as an example, but there's tons of those people.
Right. Yeah. No, I totally agree.
May or may not have ever been in those positions had those people still been around.
Yeah. No, that's an awesome answer.
Maybe it doesn't change anything. But maybe it changes everything.
It's kind of hard to top, but real quick, I got to point out, did you ever read Stephen King's story on this? Yeah.
11/22/63.
They did a miniseries with James Franco. Have you watched it?
Very good.
It was good.
Yeah.
It was really good.
One of the very awesome adaptations of Stephen King.
I don't want to spoil it, but it does get into that a little bit with the ending.
Yeah.
Like the butterfly effect.
And you could tell that like he was going for a King ending where he wanted to fuck with you. But
yeah.
I choose to believe, butterfly effect. You think about the thing, who knows? Again, that's the thing about the butterfly effect.
We don't know how time works.
Affects what other changes. Some little thing here affects someone way over here that causes them to do something over here that impacts this person that caused them to invent this that changes the world.
Yes.
And it would never have happened if this horrible thing hadn't happened 50 years prior.
Yeah.
So, like saving the Titanic or whatever might seem like a good idea because you'd save all those lives.
Yeah.
I personally believe stopping 9/11 makes the world a better place. We've grown up a lot as a nation in the last 18 years.
We kind of had blinders on throughout the 90s, for sure.
Well, ignorance is bliss.
Yeah.
Everyone was doing well. It was a prosperous time.
Yeah. Anywho.
No, not anywho. I'll die on this hill too. No, I'm kidding. You're going to edit all that out. That's perfectly.
So, if I could affect one change in history, I guess I should narrow it down to American history because there's so many events to choose from.
Oh yeah, you say Archduke Ferdinand.
You're right.
But then what?
Well,
you stop all the technological and medicinal advances and social advances that come from World War.
Yeah.
World War II changed the world for the better in a lot of ways. Now for the worse in a lot of ways too.
Yeah. As horrible as World War I and World War II were, like you could argue that a lot of good came from that ultimately. So it's really weird. And it's one of those things like do you really want to mess with that? Cause we could end up with a worse future.
Yeah.
And that's where most of the good time travel storylines come from. But
trying to make a change for the better makes things way worse. So maybe we go change something good that happened and things get better, right? So like maybe I go stop Obama from getting elected.
Oh, no.
And like, and Sarah Palin like does something horrible and it makes a much better future because Trump never got elected.
Since we're talking about alternate realities, I just want to point out the new Watchmen series. Holy crap, it's so good. You need to go watch it. But they do, obviously, the original Watchmen graphic novel really dealt heavily with an alternate reality because of the appearance of Dr. Manhattan. The Vietnam War was won and Vietnam became a state and like all the implications that Nixon had like 4 terms and they imply that Robert Redford became president and it's like this whole weird alternate reality. And one of the weird things they did in the show was that cell phones never were invented. Everyone still has landlines, but beepers are still a thing. But they have all this really high tech stuff, like electric cars have been a thing for decades. So it's really weird, like the little technological things.
I'm the biggest Watchmen. I've read that book 80 times, if not more. I've studied it cover to cover. Yeah. I'm a huge Watchmen nerd. I've seen the movie a couple times. Whatever. But I like it. Okay. But I've been really interested in this show because it is something different. And I like the fact that it looks at history.
Yeah.
And the way I understand it is to tie it all back to the theme of the show is that it has a lot to do with like failures from a social point of view.
Yeah.
And racial failures.
Exactly.
Recognizing the gulf there.
Right.
I don't know, man.
That kind of
is very interesting.
That kind of ties into my answer on this. So obviously race has been a real big issue throughout American history. Like throughout human history for sure. But American history is like, that's been a thing consistently, obviously.
Yes, since the beginning.
Yeah. Like our country has really struggled with it, where some countries have kind of gotten past it, and we still deal with it today, obviously.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of this,
the two white guys.
yeah. But I think it's important to acknowledge. And I think one of the big issues with how it's been handled throughout history by the government and whatnot is because of the failure of Reconstruction. And the reason Reconstruction ultimately failed was because after Lincoln was assassinated, we had one of the worst presidents in American history, Andrew Johnson. And he was impeached, but he wasn't removed from office because of one vote. If I could go back in time, I would convince that person to change his mind. Either that, or I would make sure that he didn't show up to vote.
Good,
because
man.
if that vote had gone differently, if Johnson was removed from office, Reconstruction might have gone differently. And then we would have avoided so many issues.
I'm sure there would have still been issues, but I like to think that the violence would have gone.
Yeah. Well, it was that, and there was all those anti-black laws that were passed in the South, and Johnson just kind of let it happen.
Yeah.
Like that, you never know what could have happened.
Kind of encouraged it too.
Yeah.
Like behind closed doors kind of thing.
Yeah. So even though slavery was ended, we still had this divide for the next 100 years. It wasn't until like Martin Luther King stepped up and started saying something that we really had some significant change, when people started to really reevaluate the fact that we were treating. The civil rights
movement in the 60s, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X.
Yes.
The girl that Rosa Parks copied to get credit for doing that thing because she was part of a movement. No disrespect to Rosa Parks. She put herself at personal risk.
Totally.
But there was shame on me for forgetting the girl's name.
Yeah.
But there was a younger girl who did the exact same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the group that Rosa Parks was like affiliated with picked up on it and was like, that's good.
Yeah.
And thought that they could get more sympathy from the white people that were like on the fence about saying anything, that maybe already thought this was kind of messed up.
Yeah.
And they needed those people to start speaking out to join this chorus of voices that they were championing.
Well, yeah, because people weren't going to change their mind overnight. They had to be strategic about it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not trying to take anything away.
Yeah, it's
it's interesting.
Well, part of the problem, I think, was that institutional racism had become so ingrained in our society. And that goes back to Johnson. Yeah. That's all where it started, man.
See, I think your choice is super smart. And from a nationalist point of view, I don't know how you can not choose that as your number one goal, because you think about
we had the Civil War, but nothing really changed because, you know what I mean?
It just made it illegal to not pay people for their work.
Yeah.
That's all it did.
Yeah, exactly.
And now we have corporate America that just found a way to make it legal to pay you way less than what you should get paid for your work, which in turn is the ultimate epic fail.
Great Scott!
So for this episode, I once again reached out to the internet and asked, if you could time travel to witness any point in history, where or when would you go and why? My fellow podcaster Tyler from Too Young for This Hit said, there's not one thing in the past I would want to experience. Troidal Power from the best animated shows ever so far says, how narrow of a time frame are we limited to? Can I say go back to when Shigeru Miyamoto was working on the original Legend of Zelda and just become his best friend and hang out during the entire process? I like that answer. So Troy, I'm going to say yes. Yes to all of that. And if you can get me an autograph while you're at it, I'd appreciate it. So we got Britta Tennis on Instagram. She says, travel to summer 2020 to see if the world would be any happier by then. Dan Warren on Facebook says, so many to choose from. Anytime Agrippa was alive, just to see him in action. Thani Ayepi says, I'm only going to answer if I can be certain to ride in a TARDIS. Tia Link says, Woodstock, baby. No explanation needed. David Austin says, 25 to 35 AD, Judea. Gina Nordstedt says, the Library of Alexandria, before the burnings. I completely agree. That's actually something we brought up on the first episode. It's what I consider to be one of the most epic fails of history. Paul Marquardt says, the meteor. Aaron Jesse Rogers says, I would go back to when they created Stonehenge so I could finally understand how and why it was created. Robin Wood says, I would meet Merlin, back in a time when druids as educators to kings were respected teachers. Also to whisper in his ear about the Lancelot thing. Psst, not that one. You want a green one. Devin Norris said, construction of any of the ancient pyramids. Link Flores said, I would love to visit Shaolin back in the heyday. It would be cool to watch the training and learn ancient techniques. My brother, Eric Holmes Tagliaferri, said, prehistoric times. Let's get savage. Michael Berkshire said, I would probably travel between 900 and 1200 AD and see the famous Native American urban cities of Chaco Canyon of New Mexico or the Choctaw Mountains of Illinois. James Scon said, the French Revolution, Cuban Revolution, 1968 Chicago police riot, they seem relevant currently. Rich Tiberius Logue asks, witness only? No interaction? Susan Stanton said, a century into the future, just to see what happens next. Floyd Kinsley followed up by saying, I wish I had a sports almanac from the future, so I could become a trillionaire from sports gambling. William Skipper said, Hawaii, early 70s, the first time Gary Lopez shot the tube at Pipeline. Jessica Grigori says, this might not be history, because I don't think there's an actual date for it. It's somewhat cheesy, but to witness the first time man and wolf, or dog, built trust. There's some folklore about it for sure, but to actually see the first bond of man's best friend had to be a pretty epic moment. Cody Martin recommends reading The Light of Other Days by Arthur C. Clarke and Stephen Baxter. Sean Morse said, the signing of the Declaration of Independence, or Live Aid. Both are so cool. I wasn't alive for the first one, but too young to attend the second one. Both good answers. What cracks me up is that the famous painting of the signing of the Declaration of Independence is completely inaccurate. It was painted years after the actual signing. It looks all regal and larger than life, but there's a good chance most of the founding fathers were drunkenly arguing with each other most of the time while they contemplated what would happen if they had failed. Adrian Poland said, remember that time Hitler almost drowned? Yeah, let's fix that. As for Hitler, I would argue that you wouldn't necessarily have to kill Hitler himself. You would just have to stop the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, which basically caused World War I. If World War I doesn't happen, Hitler doesn't go crazy, Germany doesn't become economically desperate, and the Nazis don't rise to power. For more on that, definitely check out our episode on World War I back on episode 3. Heather Puri de Youngblood said, Choice A, late Victorian era, maybe the 1860s, because the Civil War was over and the Native Americans didn't lose the Indian Wars yet. I love the Victorian era, the fascination with witchcraft and fairy tales and folklore, the literature, transcendentalism, the importance of manners, the Wild Wild West, the adorable clothes, people made things with their own hands, the invention of Halloween parties. Maybe I'd go live with the Plains Indians. After all, I did marry one, lol. Choice B, early 1400s Puerto Rico, the rich Tiano Indian culture of my people. Susan Gause says, the 1940s. David Harris said, with Charles Darwin when his brain went click. Brian Simpson says, 15 September 1835, Galapagos Islands. Charles Holzhaus said, April of 1912, aboard the RMS Titanic. I've always been intrigued by the hysteria that must have taken place that night. To see it unfold would be insane. For more on that, definitely check out episode 2 where we really go into detail on what went down with the Titanic. Nelgum Ford on Twitter says, I would go back to the early 1990s and save the life of a friend. Fred Thompson says, 1350, the Black Plague is over, labor supply is down, wages are up, and we survived. Party like it's 1350.
Human history is so ugly. It's so brutal. And
we've been
violent,
failing upwards
horrible.
This entire time.
I mean, that's the thing, though. Like, as people, we really try, and we obviously fail spectacularly a lot, and that's why history is important.
Yeah.
Is we try to learn from our mistakes, and we try to make ourselves better as a species. And unfortunately, we fail at that every single day, but we also succeed.
Mm-hmm.
And while it's really easy, and in a lot of cases, it's much easier and you know, thankfully for us, much more entertaining to talk about the times that we don't learn our lesson. We do a lot of times in pretty significant ways. And I think that while it's nice to want to change all these horrible things because we don't want bad things to happen, that, like we mentioned with the butterfly effect, I'm not sure how much good it would actually do. Yeah. And it might actually just be better to leave things as they are, just because, you know, maybe we do eventually learn our lessons, and you know, maybe, And that's what, to me, the one thing that I have hope about with the human race is that eventually, sometimes we do show that we're not all that bad.
Definitely.
And then, unfortunately, there's a lot of times in between where it's just like nonstop horror show. But, thankfully there's puppy and kitten videos for that.
Yeah, definitely. The internet, that's another one that's kind of a double-edged sword.
Yeah, how many horrible things have happened because of the internet?
Yeah,
But
stuff
at the
that we
same
never
time,
would have thought of.
How many amazing things have happened?
Yeah,
because of the internet?
in a lot of ways, we're more interconnected, but we're also
More interconnected.
Yeah, we're at each other's throats.
But guess
Yeah.
what? The whole world has always hated each other.
Yeah,
We'll
exactly.
always hate each other.
Yeah.
Now, the good
So
news
just
is, I think generations from now, when we're on the next thing that, like, we never could have imagined the internet as
Right.
like, Joe average. I mean, there were smart people that could.
Yeah.
But most of us wouldn't. 50 years ago, if you mentioned the internet and described what it was to people, they'd
Yeah.
be like, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah.
But maybe 50 years from now, there's the next thing that
Yeah.
makes the internet look like the Stone Age and that people now
Right.
would couldn't even fathom.
Yeah.
Yeah,
totally.
but that's technology. We're always learning technologically.
Sure.
We're smart monkeys, man. We've got opposable
Yeah.
thumbs and we know how to use them.
Exactly.
But for me, it's like, can we ever get over the horrible things that we do to each other and overcome our differences and unite? And I don't think that's going to happen until the aliens come or the zombies come.
Yeah,
and
something
gives
to
us a
unite
reason
us.
and a common enemy.
Yeah.
Which is always the best. The thing that cures all ills is a common enemy.
Yeah. It's like in that one documentary, Independence Day.
Yeah, exactly. And I was thinking more like the documentary Armageddon.
Yeah, exactly.
Harry Stamper saved the world.
Right.
Yeah. R.I.P. Harry.
R.I.P. Harry.
But no, until there is some external common enemy, and whether that's a foreign species or zombies or whatever.
Space sharks.
Space sharks. Oh God. Let's not tempt fate. Don't say their name one more time. We said it twice.
Oh no.
Don't say it again.
Oh no. It's like Gremlins?
No, it's like Beetlejuice.
It's like Beetlejuice.
Then
Yeah.
stop. That's twice.
Oh God. No.
So unless we get something like that, maybe megalodons break out of the hole in the ground that the piranhas broke out of in the movie Piranha.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Maybe megalodons
How could I
break out
forget?
and all of a sudden the oceans are full of 90-foot sharks that eat boats. And it's like war against the sharks. And they multiply like rabbits. Like every day, 50 of them are born, every continent or whatever.
The great megalodon invasion of 1964.
Yeah, the Emu War, but with sharks.
Yeah, exactly.
There were more sharks than bullets.
Okay, real quick. I got one more here for you. On a brighter note, Nicole's answer was actually Woodstock, which I thought was kind of awesome.
We went with the dark, disturbing, and that'd be kind of cool. She went with a really awesome cultural moment. I want to go see the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show, or
Right.
that would be awesome.
So that brings me to, if you could, witness any, a positive event, I guess.
Like a pop culture?
Like something maybe pop culture, or just to enjoy something from history, or just hang out in a certain period of history that you could really be like, yeah, this is awesome. What would you do?
So from a history point of view, I'd like to go to that one Christmas in World War One.
Yeah.
They ceased fire and played soccer. And
Yeah, the British and German troops crossed no man's land.
And the Germans guys were giving them beer and stuff like that.
I love that story.
They became friends, and the next morning they started shooting at each other again. But
yeah.
for that one moment, they went back to doing what they were hired to do. They're doing their jobs,
exactly.
defending their country. But for that one hour night,
they let
put
themselves
aside
be
their
human.
differences and they were human to each other.
Yeah.
And I think especially in that environment where it's just ugliness and awfulness, to see humanity kind of poke its head out and be like, hey man,
Definitely.
on some level we're all decent.
Yeah. Exactly.
Until we're not.
Yeah.
But I think that would be cool. But from American point of view, I think I would like to go see Woodstock's a good one, or maybe the first Live Aid or something like that, where you have a huge gathering of people that just putting out positive.
That would be pretty awesome.
Woodstock's a little bit different, not Woodstock 2 or anything where it's all commercial and there's all different drugs now.
Yeah.
And who knows what Woodstock really happened, but I like to think it was very positive.
Yeah, totally. And the fact that it almost didn't happen and all this crazy stuff happened.
Change it. Star Wars opening night, 1977.
Yeah, 97 or 77.
77. Or Jaws.
We were there for 97.
Jaws opening night.
Oh, that'd be incredible.
Like an outdoor theater by the beach.
Honestly, seeing the filming of Jaws would be cool.
Yeah.
Or the filming of filming of Star Wars, because
give me a whole
there was a train wreck behind the scenes.
Movies being made, and
Yeah.
I would love to see it. But I think opening night Star Wars because that changed the world for a lot of people.
Yeah, I get goosebumps just thinking about it. Like, it must be electrifying.
Over and over and over again on like VHS and stuff.
It was already a thing when we were born, right? Like,
and by the time I was like old enough to remember things, I had already seen all the Star Wars movies like 10 times.
Totally.
Or more. Probably
Easily.
a lot more.
Yeah.
But to go see Star Wars opening night would be really, really cool.
Yeah, that's an amazing answer.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
Would be really cool.
I might have to steal that.
From like an American culture point of view, I would say either that or the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show.
You wouldn't hang out with the Vikings and get drunk?
Nah, bro. The Vikings would kill my so fast. I'd show up like, hey, fellas. And they'd be like, yell something in like Danish and just like give me the, what do you call it?
The eagle, I think
whatever they rip your rib cage out of your body and like pull your lungs out.
Oh God.
Yeah. They're awful.
They were messing around.
No, they were like the worst human beings that ever lived. And we romanticize these monstrous people. But no. People are like, oh, you got a big reddish beard and you're a big guy and you're loud. You could be a Viking. And I'm like, yeah, because I can drink a lot too. And I'm a decent fighter, I guess. I haven't been in a fight in forever, but no, I would not like to go see the Vikings.
It's like, just decapitate me, please.
Yeah, let's just make it quick. Here we go. Drink me to death.
Yeah.
It's in a drinking contest and I'll just die because you guys drink some horrible.
Have you ever actually had mead?
It's really strong.
It's an acquired taste.
Yeah, but I mean, you imagine like we drink like liquor and stuff now. They'd probably drink like water and be like, "What is this?"
Yeah,
and I'd be like, "It's Patron," and I've had chivadas, and they'd be like, laughing at me and using me for target practice or something. No, man, I'm good.
Nah, bro.
I'd like to go hang out with like a bunch of the Native Americans, but the whitey showing up like, "Hey, dude," probably wouldn't go over super well.
That's probably something we should point out with all these time travel scenarios. It might go very differently if it was anyone but us. You know what I mean?
Here's the thing, though, as white males, most time travel will work out okay.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
we could go show up in like the English courts, of like King John or something,
and fake an accent,
and just hello. They'd probably still kill us, but we could be like, we're from like way up north, and because we're white, they might not treat us super well.
Yeah.
But they would be like, all right. But if I brought like my buddy Dustin with me, who, football player for the Gators and all that, big black dude, probably wouldn't go over super well in a lot of those places for him. We were talking about that one time. He said, time travel's cool, but I can't really go far. So I got like a 4 to 5 decade window. Where
exactly.
Unless we go to a different continent. Oh, here we go.
Sure.
If you had like time, since we're science fictioning this, you have time travel powers. Yeah. We'll go in Santa Claus powers.
We have the Infinity Gauntlet.
You kind of be like everywhere at once.
Yeah.
Or like, freeze time.
Doctor Strange's time stone.
And like rip down every fence and like layer of control at every plantation. That's the South all in one night. And so like all at once it's like revolution. But here's the thing though.
That would be
I wouldn't be able to take credit for it. Because the last thing in the world that would do anybody any good is for some white dude to show up like, I freed all the black people. Like,
so I guess another one where like history could have gone way differently is Cortez and Montezuma. Yeah, if Montezuma had like actually stood up to him, they could have easily overpowered the conquistadors.
Yeah.
And the Aztecs might have actually become like a world power.
Yeah, but
if they fought back against Spain.
They're like, well, these guys have boats.
Yeah, like they were just they didn't know what was happening until it was too late.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of them did, but Montezuma was in charge and he was fooled by it.
Right. And unfortunately for them, they were not immune to the flu yet.
Yeah, that's another thing.
Really sick. Really quickly. I mean, every time the Europeans came to a new continent, like, we're here to claim this place that other people already live.
As the guy's like sniffling.
Yeah, and they're like, nah, man.
Like sneezes at it.
And then like a week later, they got to fight like 8 people. It's like they drop like, remember that Simpsons Halloween episode where Homer makes the time travel out of the toaster?
Oh, yeah.
And he keeps accidentally zapping back to prehistoric times.
Oh, man.
And he's like, all right, Homer. Yeah. And this ties into this whole episode, by the way.
Yeah.
All right, Homer, remember the advice your father gave you on your wedding night.
Yeah.
And then it cuts to like a little thought bubble of Grandpa Simpson. He goes, son, if you ever travel back in time for some reason, don't touch anything.
Yeah.
Because the slightest change in the past could have horrifying consequences on the future.
Yep.
Homer accidentally steps on a mosquito or slaps a mosquito. Flanders rules the world.
Yeah, exactly. Emperor Flanders.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I guess what we're saying is to you future listeners, mess with time. Well, this has been a fun talk. Thanks again, Chris, for joining me as always.
Hey, man. That was great. I'm sorry as always, we meandered all over the place because we can't stay on topic. Because,
we're sending you back to the future.
Once again, thanks to Nichole Wilkes for today's topic, and to everyone who wrote in for this episode. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app, write us a review, message us on social media, and let us know what you want to hear on a future episode. I finally finished re-editing the first 14 episodes of the podcast, now with less profanity. I'm still slowly working on cleaning up some of my previous content on the blog, not to mention all the other podcasts that I've been working on, so I've been staying pretty busy to say the least. I recently joined up with the guys at the We Can Make This Work Probably podcast network. If you can't wait for the next episode of Epic Fails, be sure to check out some of our other shows. You can check out Chris's podcast at comiczombie.net. You can hear me ramble on and geek out about classic Star Trek episodes on Too Young for This Trek. And you can hear us all on Podcasters Assemble, where this season we're reviewing all 25 Bond movies. And one last thing, I want to give a shout out to Bill and his family in England. Bill's the host of the Tavern, a Wheel of Time podcast. His family is currently recovering from the virus, so we're wishing him and his loved ones a speedy recovery. To Bill, his family, and to everyone around the world living through these unprecedented times. To all those incredible doctors, nurses, scientists, and medical professionals who are on the front lines of this thing. To all those we've lost in the battle. To all those risking their own well-being in the service of others. I wanted to say thank you. We're all in this together. Be excellent to one another.
Are you a fan of high fantasy epic book series that are converted into television series? No, not that one. I mean an epic book series that is actually complete. I'm referring to The Wheel of Time, Robert Jordan's fantasy masterpiece that was completed posthumously by Brandon Sanderson. Well, I have the perfect podcast for you. The Tavern is a Wheel of Time podcast where three gentlemen go through the series one chapter at a time, in their own special way. Follow along as Bill, Rob, and Rich re-experience this great epic. Experience for yourself a world full of vibrant locations, colorful characters, and storylines that will never fail to surprise. Visit a world that Game of Thrones can only wish was as fleshed out and complete. The Tavern, a Wheel of Time podcast, is part of the We Can Make This Work Probably network of podcasts. Find our podcast wherever you get your podcast feed, or visit probablywork.com for episodes of this podcast and other great shows. We will see you at the Wine Spring Inn.
This has been a presentation
of the We Can Make This Work
Probably Network.
Follow us on Twitter
@ProbablyWork for more of our questionable content.
Also, we have a website called probablywork.com.